save me from myself. You see, there was a time when I believed that life was nothing more than the distance between a sunrise and a sunset. A time when laughter came naturally, when tomorrow was a promise instead of a question, and the future wore the face of possibility. I was just a boy. A boy who thought the world would reward kindness, that hard work would always outrun misfortune, that prayers never went unanswered, and that every tear eventually found its purpose. No one warned me that life does not always knock before entering. Sometimes it breaks the door, rearranges the furniture of your soul, and leaves without apologizing. Looking back, I do not remember the exact day my innocence packed its bags and left. Perhaps it happened so slowly that I mistook it for growing up. The older I became, the more questions I collected. Why do good people bury dreams they once carried like treasures? Why does hope sometimes arrive late, only to find the house already empty? Why does life teach its greatest lessons using the language of pain? I searched for answers in people, but people were searching too. I searched in success, yet even success seemed to be asking questions of its own. I searched in silence, and silence answered me with more silence. Some nights I would lie awake, not because sleep had forgotten my address, but my thoughts had become louder than the world outside my window. It's strange, it's strange how a quiet room can become the noisiest place on earth when your mind refuses to whisper. At first, I blamed the world. I blamed circumstances, I blamed opportunities that never arrived, I blamed doors that remained closed, hands that let go, because blaming the world meant I never had to look inward. It meant I could convince myself that every scar belonged to someone else, but mirrors are cruel companions. They do not flatter, they do not negotiate, they simply reflect. Every morning I stood before one, expecting to see the same young man the world had grown accustomed to. Instead, I found someone else, someone whose smile had become a carefully rehearsed performance, someone who had mastered the art of saying I'm fine while quietly falling apart. How remarkable we humans are. We decorate our wounds with laughter, wrap our brokenness in confidence, and convince the world that our storms have already passed, even while we are still learning how to breathe beneath the rain. People praised my strength. If only they knew that strength is often nothing more than having no choice but to continue. They admired my silence. If only they understood that some battles become so exhausting they steal even the energy required to explain them. They called me patient. What they mistook for patience was often fear. Fear of falling, fear of failing, fear of disappointing those who believed in me. Fear that if I ever stopped pretending, the world would discover that beneath every confident word stood a man. A man desperate, trying to convince himself that tomorrow would be kinder than today, and so I kept walking, not because I knew the destination, but because standing still felt too much like surrender. Yet every step forward carried an invisible weight. Dreams became heavier, smiles became shorter, questions became longer, until one day, without a warning, I discovered something that frightened me more than poverty, more than loneliness, more than uncertainty. The greatest obstacle before me was no longer life itself. It was the stranger I had slowly become. The enemy had never forced open the gates. Somehow, without noticing, I had been opening them from the inside. And That was the day I first whispered the words I never imagined I would need to say. Save me from myself. There comes a season when life stops introducing itself with gentle hands. It no longer asks, "How are you?" Instead, it leans close and whispers, "Who have you become?" The question haunted me not because I did not know the answer, but because I knew it too well. I had become a man who could encourage others while quietly abandoning himself. A man who knew how to rescue strangers, yet watched his own soul drown without reaching for it. How ironic. The same heart that could carry the burdens of others had become too tired to carry its own. People often speak of monsters as though they live in forests, beneath beds, or in the shadows of abandoned places. Mine lived somewhere else. Mine lived between my two ears. I knew every fear I had ever buried, every failure I had ever rehearsed, every regret I had tried to outgrow. It never shouted, it didn't have to. It whispers, sounded exactly like my own voice. "You are running out of time. You should have done more. Look at everyone else. They are moving, you are standing still." Comparison, what a beautiful poison. It never kills instantly, it simply convinces you that another person's harvest is proof actually that your own field will never bear fruit. So I began measuring my life using other people's rulers. Their celebrations became reminders of everything I had not yet achieved. Their victories became my defeats. I forgot that every clock was built to tell its own time. I forgot that seeds buried today do not bloom because another garden is already in spring. I carried guilt for things I could not control. I carried shame for storms I never invited. I carried expectations that grew heavier each time I pretended. They weighed nothing at all. Some nights I argued with God, not because I had lost faith, but because faith sometimes asks questions before it finds peace. I asked, how much more? How long must hope survive on empty promises? Why does the road always seem longer for those already exhausted? The heavens remained silent. They remained silent, not empty, just silent. And silence has a way of forcing you to hear yourself. That was the dangerous part, because left alone with my thoughts, I became both the judge and the accused. Every mistake was replayed, every opportunity missed was reopened. Every word I wished I had spoken stood before me like a witness, refusing to leave the courtroom. I sentenced myself over and over again without mercy, without appeal, without realizing I was serving a life sentence inside a prison I had built from bricks. God, what if I had started sooner? What if I had believed in myself? What if I had taken the risk? What if I had not allowed fear to masquerade as wisdom? How many futures have been buried by people who mistook hesitation for preparation? I know, because I buried a few myself. Dreams don't always die because life destroys them. Sometimes they suffocate under the weight of our own doubt. I became an architect of unfinished beginnings, a collector of almost successful, almost healed, almost enough. There's a peculiar loneliness in watching yourself become less than the person you once promised you would be. The mirror knew every morning it will come to me without judgment. It never called me a failure, it never called me weak. It simply asked the same question without unwavering honestly. Will you keep surviving, or will you finally begin living? That question terrified me because surviving had become familiar. Living required courage. Surviving asks you to breathe. Living asks you to believe. And belief, after enough disappointment, becomes one of the hardest mountains. A weary heart will never be asked to climb. I wanted someone to break down my walls, to understand my silence, to rescue me from the maze inside my own mind. Then I realized how unfair that was. How could I expect another soul to navigate corridors I had never dared to walk through myself? No one could fight a battle I kept hiding. No one could unlock a door I insisted on keeping closed. Perhaps that was the cruelest truth I have ever met. The hands I had been waiting for were my own, and the voice I had been praying to hear had been whispering all along, stand up. Not because life has become easier. Stand up because you still have a story that has not yet been told. For the first time, I do not ask life to change. I asked for something far more difficult. I bowed my head, I closed my eyes, and with a heart bruised by its own battles, I whispered once more, save me. Not from the world, not from the poverty, not from failure. Save me from the man I become when I stop believing that tomorrow still belongs to me. There is a moment when running out of strength is longer than the worst thing that can happen. The worst thing is realizing you still have strength left, but you no longer know what to do with it. That was me, standing in the quiet aftermath of my own thoughts, where nothing outside had changed, but everything inside had collapsed and rebuilt itself more times than I could count. I used to believe healing was a destination, a place you arrived at with applause, waiting with scars erased, with memories rewritten into something softer. But life does not work that way. Life does not erase. It teaches you how to carry without breaking again. So I began learning a different kind of survival, not that kind that hides pain, but the kind that walks with it without being consumed by it. The mirror still spoke. But its voice had changed. It no longer asked whether I was surviving or living. It asked something quieter. Are you listening yet? Listening to what I had been avoiding, not the world, not people, but myself. The part of me I had kept locked away because I was afraid it would confirm everything I feared was true. So I sat with it, not as an enemy and victim, but as two exhausted versions of the same man, finally too tired to fight. And in that silence, something unexpected happened. The voice that used to accuse me began to soften, not because the truth changed, but because I stopped running from it. I saw it clearly now. I was not only the wounded, I was also the one who had learned how to keep walking wounded. That is not weakness, that is endurance. But Endurance without direction eventually becomes a suffering. I asked myself for the first time, without anger, what are you becoming? And I did not rush the answer, because some answers only reveal themselves when silence is no longer a punishment but a place of honesty. I thought of every version of me that had been buried along the way: the boy who used to believe that life was simple, the dreamer who thought effort guaranteed arrival, the fighter who never knew he would one day be fighting himself. I realized something that almost made me laugh through the pain. I had spent so long trying to escape myself, I never noticed I was still here. I still breathing, still thinking, still capable of beginning again, and that is where hope lives. Not in perfection, not in answers, but in continuation. I began to understand that save me from myself was never a request for someone else to arrive. It was a confession that I had finally reached the limit of avoidance, and beyond that limit was responsibility, not heavy in the way punishment is heavy, but steady in the way truth is steady. I stopped asking for a life without storms. I started asking for strength that does not disappear in them. I stopped demanding that the past be erased. I started learning how to stop living inside it, and slowly, not all at once, something shifted. Not the world, me. The same hands that once felt useless began doing small things again. The same mind that once spirited endlessly began noticing silence without fear. The same heart that once begged to be rescued began learning how to participate in its own rescue. I will not say the war is over. That would be a lie, too comfortable to believe, but I will say this: the war is no longer the only thing I know. There are moments now where the sky feels open again, where questions do not always feel like weight, where breathing is not an argument with existence. And in those moments, I understand something simple but powerful. I was never only breaking, I was also becoming. So if I'm to end this confession, let it not sound like defeat. Let it sound like arrival at the edge of something new. I still carry myself, all versions, the light and the shadow, the doubt and the hope. But I no longer ask to be saved from myself as though I am only something to escape. Now I ask different. Save me from the parts of me. Then forget I am still learning. Save me from the silence that convinces me I am finished. Save me from the fear that tries to end the story before it reaches its meaning and it hears anything I have learned. In the long conversation between who I was and who I am becoming, it is this: I was not lost, I was in motion. And motion, no matter how broken it feels, is still refusing to end. So I stand here now, not healed in the perfect sense, but honest in the truest sense. And finally, I understand that what I have been trying to say since the beginning: save me from myself, not because I am still becoming, not because I am beyond saving, the kind of person who is worth returning to. And now, after all the noise has settled, after all the versions of me have spoken, after the walls have learned to call me by my name, I no longer want escape. I want reform. Not the kind that erases my past, but the kind that learns from its ashes. I want to rebuild myself slowly, like dawn rebuilding the sky after a long night, not rushing the light, not forcing the sun, just allowing it to return. I wish to reform the way I think. I wish to return, just allowing me to return on its own time. I no longer let fear write my decisions in advance. I stop mistaking overthinking for wisdom and silence for defeat. I wish to reform the way I see myself, not as a collection of failures I survived, but a story I still unfolding in chapters I had not yet read. I want to reform my patience so it no longer becomes resignation. I want to reform my strength so it no longer means suffering quietly, but standing honestly. So it no longer confuses pain with identity or loneliness with permanence. And if I'm to speak plainly, I do not want to become someone new. I want to become someone true, the kind of man who does not run from his own reflection but learns to meet it with peace, the kind of man who understands that discipline is not punishment but direction, the kind of man who knows that even broken crayons still color, and so does a broken past still shape a meaningful future. So I will not ask to be saved anymore as though I am beyond myself. Instead, I will learn to stand where I once collapsed, to speak where I once stayed silent, to move forward without needing certainty to give me permission. And if I ever forget who I am becoming, I will return here, to this moment, to this confession, to this quiet agreement between my past and my future, and remind myself gently, I was never only falling, I was always learning how to rise. So let this be my final prayer, not for rescue, but for renewal, not to be taken away from myself, but to finally be guided back into myself, whole, aware, and willing to begin again. For the just shall live by faith. Hurricane.